Every December, they appear in nativity scenes around the world. 3 kings, crowned and richly dressed, kneeling before a manger with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. We know their names: Caspar, Melchior, Balthasar. We know where they came from and which gift each one carried. It is one of the most familiar images in Christianity, and almost every detail of it appears nowhere in the Bible. This is not a story about Scripture being wrong. It is the opposite. Over 16 centuries, layer upon layer of legend was added to a very short account until the additions became more familiar than the original. Strip those layers away, and what remains is stranger and in many ways more remarkable than the version on the Christmas card. So let us take the familiar picture apart, piece by piece, and see what the earliest sources actually say. Start with the number 3. The Gospel of Matthew, the only place in the entire Bible where these visitors appear, never says how many there were. Not 3, not any number at all. The text simply refers to Magi from the east arriving in Jerusalem. So where did 3 come from? Almost certainly from the gifts. Matthew lists 3: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Somewhere in the 3rd century, roughly 200 years after the Gospel was written, the idea took hold that 3 gifts meant 3 givers. It was an assumption, and a reasonable one, but it was never in the text. Other traditions counted differently. Some Eastern churches held that there were 12. In the earliest Christian art, the number varies. The truth is, we have no idea how many made that journey. It may have been 2. It may have been a party of dozens, with servants and guards and animals, as any long desert journey in that era would have required. Now the second detail. Were they kings? Matthew does not say that either. The word he uses is Magi, not kings, not rulers, not princes. The idea that they were royalty came later, encouraged by passages elsewhere in the Old Testament about kings bringing gifts, and by the natural instinct to make the visitors as grand as the one they came to worship. Then there are the names: Caspar, Melchior, and Balthasar. These are so familiar that most people assume they come from the Gospels. They do not. Matthew names no one. The names first appear in a Latin manuscript from the 6th century, a compilation of popular and apocryphal traditions, written roughly 500 years after the events it describes. And the details we associate with each of them, the ages, the appearances, the countries they came from, are later still. A 14th century work by a German cleric, A History of the 3 Kings, fixed the picture that most of us carry today. Melchior, elderly and white-bearded. Caspar, young and beardless. Balthasar, dark-skinned. Each assigned a continent, each assigned a gift. There is something genuinely beautiful in that medieval invention. The 3 figures were meant to represent the 3 known continents of the world: Europe, Asia, and Africa, all coming together to worship. Different ages, different lands, different peoples united at one cradle. It is a powerful idea, and the instinct behind it is sound. But it is an interpretation, not a record. And there is one more detail, perhaps the most surprising of all. They almost certainly were not at the manger. Read Matthew carefully, and the scene is different from the one on the Christmas card. The Magi do not arrive at a stable. They enter a house. There is no mention of shepherds, no manger, no night of the birth. And there is a chilling clue about timing. When Herod later moves against the children of Bethlehem, the age he specifies is 2 years and under, based on what the Magi had told him about when the star appeared, which suggests that by the time these travelers arrived, the child was no longer a newborn, perhaps a toddler, perhaps as much as 2 years old. The shepherds and the Magi, side by side in every nativity scene, come from 2 different Gospels, and quite possibly 2 different moments, separated by many months. So if they were not 3, and not kings, and not named Caspar, Melchior, and Balthasar, and not at the manger, then who on earth were they? Here the history becomes fascinating. The word Magi is not Greek in origin. It is Persian. Its earliest known use appears in an inscription of Darius the Great, 5 centuries before Christ, where it refers to the priests of Zoroastrianism, the ancient religion of Persia. These were a learned priestly caste, keepers of ritual, and above all, students of the sky. They watched the heavens with enormous care, believing that the movements of the stars carried meaning for the affairs of kings and nations. Most scholars today think the visitors in Matthew were exactly this: priest astronomers from the Parthian Empire in the land we now call Iran and Iraq. But there is a further nuance, and it changes how we should hear the story. By the 1st century, the Greek word had broadened. It no longer meant only Zoroastrian priests. It had come to cover astrologers and practitioners of esoteric arts generally, and it was not always a compliment. To a devout Jewish audience, reading the scriptures that warned sternly against star reading and divination, the word carried real suspicion. Matthew's first readers, then, did not picture noble kings. They pictured foreign priests of a foreign religion, practicing an art their own tradition mistrusted. And that is precisely what makes the account so extraordinary. Look at the contrast Matthew draws. In Jerusalem sits a king who has the scriptures read aloud to him, who is told exactly where the child will be born, and who responds by sending soldiers. And out of the east come outsiders with no scriptures, no covenant, and nothing to guide them but a light in the sky, who travel for months and kneel and worship. The ones who should have known did not come. The ones nobody expected did. So the medieval artists who painted 3 kings from 3 continents were wrong about the details, and right about something deeper. They understood that this moment was about the whole world being invited in. That instinct was sound. The legend simply gave it faces, and names, and crowns. Strip all of it away, and the heart of the account remains, unchanged and still startling. Strangers from another land, another faith, another way of seeing the world, were the first to recognize what Jerusalem had missed. If you'd like to keep searching with us, through the places where history and scripture meet, subscribe and tell us which mystery we should uncover next.